Oh my goodness, look at that. It's Angel Citadel live on Twitch. What the heck is going on? Can you believe this crap?
We're back.
God help you all. How's everybody doing? It's Sunday. It's 8:30 and we're opening up Angel Citadel's lounge. Got comfy chairs out, those nice divans or whatever. We've got charcuterie trays and the booze is good, I hear. We've got impeccable taste.
And we're in Virginia.
And we're in Virginia. We moved. I think we moved. Are we done
Yes,
moving?
technically. We no longer have a house or anything we own in Michigan. How's that?
Okay. Yeah, I'm good with that.
Are we finished? Not really, because we've still got to do that horrible thing of unpacking.
Ugh. Boxes everywhere. It's ugly. But hey, we're back on our basically the same schedule, I guess, at least for now. Um, we may end up having to change that a little bit come August when Joann goes back to school. But the Sundays are probably going to stay the same. Um, and we're ready to hang out. We're ready to talk TTRPGs again. God, it feels like it's been forever. We are. Let's see. We're gonna talk tonight, um, and give out some free, unsolicited, and dubious quality advice about running games. And I wanted to start out by referring another article, and I kind of want to chat a little bit about the content of that article because it got me to think. And one of the things that I like to do when stuff gets me to think is try and share it and talk around my thoughts and that helps me to learn. What is it they say? If you're trying to learn a subject or something, teach it, and you learn it better that way. So that's kind of what I'm doing. This one comes from Geek Native, who had a guest author by the name of Josh Rosing. Josh, if you're here and if you're listening, if you ever find this, I don't know how you'll ever find this, but if you ever find this and I mispronounced your name, I'm sorry. um, he did a good article actually on how to put a time limit on your D&D quests and why you should. So we're going to take that, we're going to extrapolate it a little bit because D&D, and we don't really do D&D here, but it seems to come up often enough. So I guess we do kind of do D&D here. Um, and I want to talk about that article, but I'm going to drop that link in chat here real quick. That way, if y'all want to take a look at it, you can. And no, I'm not actually plagiarizing this or anything like that, but he comes up with some good points. So um, I'm gonna look at this. I think I want to look at this from two perspectives because you've really got two different types of games that deal with time that I can think of. The first one is the one that he's talking about, and it's one that you're talking about a timeline of things that's going to go on in an adventure, um, with or without the character's knowledge. And I do this informally all the time. Um, I know kind of what my bad guys are going to do, and I know roughly when it's going to happen. and they're going to do what they're going to do. And if the players want to engage with it, if not, and if they don't, then bad stuff's going to happen. Their friends are probably going to die, and they won't be able to go down to the bar and get the really good alcohol, because the town will be destroyed by that. So that's one way. The other way, and you can read a little bit more about this in your best game ever, is not so much adventures that are timed or that have a timeline going on in the background, but ones that are actually timed. For instance, uh, the village that you walk into, their water source has been poisoned and they've all drunk it. And you've got a week before the entire village is dead. And you've got to find a cure. So I mean, you have 6, 7 days, whatever it is, and you're counting down the clock. And at the end of that time, either you found a cure or everybody in that village is dead. Um, and there's really no way for you to interact with the timeline other than to avoid the failure condition. So I want to talk about both of those kinds of games and why you might do them, and how to think about setting those up, and what what you might use them for, and how often you should do it. Um, so let's get going. In the first one, and this is the one that the article's about. It talks about having a timeline for um, for an actual game, and he uses an example, and I wish I could. So I've got it snipped here in our private Discord chat. I wish I could share pictures on Twitch. That's one of my few beefs about Twitch's chat, is I can't drop pictures in Twitch. But the author of the adventure, and it's the adventure's Red Hand of Doom. It's from Dungeons and Dragons third edition, I believe it was. Has a 65-day timeline, and it's not, every day has an event or anything like that, but it gives kind of a broad pace for the adventure. So, for instance, day 1, PCs encounter marauders near Drellin's Ferry. Day 7, Red Hand Horde marches from Cinder Hill. Day 8, by the way, spoilers. So yeah, anyway, if you're ever gonna play this adventure, um, stop listening, or something. Turn off the sound, whatever. I'm sorry. I'm a horrible person. I'm so bad with spoilers. I really am. Um, Day 8, Horde reaches Skullgord Bridge, and then underneath that one, in italics, it's delayed 3 days if bridge is destroyed. So, what's the assumption here? The assumption is that um, by day 8, if the PCs have figured out that the Red Hand Horde is marching and know what path they're taking, and then take action to slow them down, this is how far they get slowed down. Um, or they take out the bridge. This is the result of that action. This is how far it delays them until they can find another way to cross the river or whatever it is. And the whole timeline's laid out that way. So if the PCs interact with it, the timeline becomes dynamic, and they can affect how this horde, this enemy army or whatever, is moving. And that's kind of a cool little dynamic, because what it does is it says, okay, um, there are allies that they can bring to the fight. And if they delay the enemy army enough, more allies can show um, at that final battle, and the outcome becomes different. And so instead of just shifting dates around or anything like that, it becomes an actual effect, and that's in my mind that's a really really cool dynamic. Now, it's not something that I'd necessarily want to do every single adventure or anything like that. But understanding how the flow of a campaign goes in such a way that it's certain portions of that campaign, it becomes timed. Sure, absolutely. Is that something that you've ever experienced, Joanne? Have you had the opportunity to play or run an adventure like that or a campaign?
Not in the fantasy realm, but in one of those. Shit, my mind went blank. uh, Blades in the Dark with the clocks, the ticking of the clocks. Yeah, we've talked about that. You've got the ticking of the clock and how long you've got and how quickly you've got to get the job done before the clock is full and you're in deep shit. But the other thing that I got to thinking as you were talking about the whole timeline thing, that makes me think of that game that we kickstarted, Arc Doom. Um, I will drop a link of that in chat. But we kickstarted Arc Doom, and the entire premise behind that is a timeline. You have X amount of time to play, and so that's how long you have before you end uh, the apocalypse. You have to stop the apocalypse before your time's up. There's other games that we've played that do a timeline very well, but those were all board games like Desert and um, what was that other one?
Pandemic?
Yeah, like you have a certain amount of time to play, and I think that having a not necessarily so much, not just so much the timeline, but having a dynamic world. The bad guy isn't going to stop just because you're off collecting carrots for Farmer Maggot. They're going to keep going. There's still going to be events happening. They're still going to do what they're going to do.
So one of the other things that's worth talking about when you're looking at this particular concept, okay, is the idea that there's a certain point where there's too much. Okay. If every day on your timeline is jammed shut and you expect your players to interact with these static events that are marching along on a timeline, what you're doing is railroading your players. So you want to be able to have enough gap in that timeline where they can interact with the world around them outside of just, oh my goodness, in the case of the red hand of fury, right? Oh my goodness, we've got this horde marching towards us. We need to cut off all their supply lines and make their marching route difficult, blah blah blah. The the npc interaction with that one smith's daughter, or the mayor of a town, or another adventuring party or something like that, or a side quest that gets you um, some sort of enchanted sword or something like that. If you don't have any time to do any of those, then you're gonna feel like with a timeline that long, you're gonna feel like, well, it doesn't matter what I do, I'm either going to interact with this timeline or there's nothing else for me to do, and everybody's going to die. And you don't want your players to feel that. There has to be meaningful choice in your games, and so that's another thing to consider. So why would you do something like this? Number one, it keeps tension in the game, um, and that tension is, again, depending on how jammed your timeline is. Um, it can be, and probably should be, a very slow burn. Um, the cartoons that you watch where they've got that trail of gunpowder that goes on for like half a mile and twists and turns around rocks and over items and then turns back in on itself, and so somebody at the end of it lights it, and you've got the cool kind of pacing music as it fizzes down and around or whatever, and um, maybe at the last second the hero goes between the gunpowder and the keg or whatever that's going to blow it up, and rubs the dust a bit, and cuts the chain or whatever. But there's that slow burn tension that you're going for with a timeline like this. There's also the fact that it keeps the game moving. Um, those of you that have played video games, I mean, we do video games ourselves, right? But the kind of video game that I'm talking about here is not necessarily like what we've done, where Halo is pretty railroaded, or um, V Rising, or Grim Dawn. I'm thinking more of games like Skyrim or Oblivion, where you can literally go half a year without ever interacting with the main quest, just doing these side quests and side items and things in this massive open world. And don't get me wrong, it's beautiful to do that. Um, but if you're trying to keep interaction with the main quest, there has to be a reason for you to do so. And a timeline like this is one way to create that kind of pacing that says, okay, if you don't interact with this main quest in this amount of time, then bad things are going to happen, or things are going to become more complicated for you, or whatever, right? And so doing a side quest here and there is okay, but you have to prioritize. Um, and so on the DM side, that does a couple other things. It provides some meaningful choices and consequences for the players. So if you want to do all those side quests, you can, but the horde's going to eventually get to the town, or whatever. And I use the horde just because we talked about that adventure, but that doesn't have to be what it is. And they're going to wipe out the town, and that's going to happen. And so you either stop it or you don't. But it's not so jammed that you can't do anything. It also limits the amount of sandbox details that the GM has to come up with. If you think about a game like Skyrim or something like that, all those side quests and all those little tiny go get this and go do that kind of things. Um, think about all of the stereotypes that you've ever seen about role players, right? If you give a role player a quest and have them interact with a quote unquote meaningless NPC, a shopkeeper or a porter or something like that, and you bother to give them a name, they will instantly become the most important character in your entire campaign. It happens every single time. So, if they go on these side quests and they run into these people and you ask, okay, well, what's their name or what are they doing? And hopefully you're watching our show and getting tips and stuff like that. So you've got lists of names or cards that give names or something, right? Something that you're not just like on the spot. Um, or cards like that, our tallest NPC deck. Yay. We love our decks. Hey, I bought that. Okay, fine. Anyway, so it makes it so the GM doesn't have to come up with anywhere near as many of those because the tension keeps the players on the main quest more of the time. You still have to come up with some, and that's okay. It's not going to kill you as GM to come up with some stuff on the fly, but at the same time, doing that all the time gets tiring for the GM. And then keeping track of, okay, who's important, who's not important, who have they interacted with, what did they learn from that person, what did they tell them, what quests have they been on? What linkage is there? Um, I'm kind of a masochist that way. That's the way I run my Invisible Sun game that happens every other Sunday, and so I've got like half a million different plot hooks out there now, and people that they're meeting or have been referred to or going to meet, because it's a living world. It's an entire ecosystem inside my head, and I'm crazy that way. But um, most people don't want to do that, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Um, you have these tricks like putting a timeline or putting a focus on timing that have this side effect of not having to let you do or make portions of this world that these players are in that they're not going to interact with. Whereas if you didn't have that and just let them wander off everywhere and do all these side quests, you'd have to continue down that rat chain, right? And what's the next thing, and who's the next person, and what's the next quest, and you have to do all that yourself. So that's when I look at that article on Geek Native, that's kind of what I take from that, and I think it's an incredibly powerful tool if you enjoy running sandbox campaigns. Now, with that being said, we did talk about two types of timed games. And the second type of timed game is more about the failure. You either succeed or you fail, and you have X amount of time to do it. This is not a slow burn kind of a game. This is a high tension kind of a game. Um, and it's one that I struggle a little bit with, but it's also luckily one that you can't use incredibly often. If you do, everything will become a crisis to your players, and that's no fun over the long term. It's if you think about oh, going back to the video game analogy, right? Think about Call of Duty Zombies. Okay,
No, I hate that game
why do you hate that game?
because there's always another zombie.
That's right. There's always another zombie. And don't get me wrong. It's not that it's not fun to kill zombies because it is, and
I prefer Left 4 Dead.
it's not that there's not um, good weapons or the graphics are good or whatever. It's that they never freaking stop. And so the tension of, oh my gosh, where's the next zombie going to come from? Shoot, it doesn't matter. Eventually, you're going to have so many zombies that they're going to overwhelm you and you're going to die. So at that point, why have the tension at all? There's no it it becomes so tense that you become strung out, right? Think of like a bow and arrow, right? If you leave your bow strung constantly, the spring gets worn out from um, the actual bow portion of it. You have to unstring your bow to keep the spring in the curve. Um, and horror or timed tension are the same way. When you're running a horror game, and this is one of the reasons that I absolutely freaking love um, Sean Reynolds. Stay Alive. It's hands down the best horror supplement I've ever seen. But he goes into this. He talks about that whole, you can't have that tension all the time. You have to be piecemealing it here and there, and have a jump scare here and have a slow burn over here, and then a big plot twist here, and a bit of body horror there, and whatever, right? But it's not all horror. You have to let the players and the characters rest between these set pieces. Um, Otherwise, it loses its punch.
Well, if you look at some of the most popular horror videos, you've got that going for them too. I mean, let's talk World War Z with Brad Pitt. Uh, if you're watching him, it starts off with really high tension and him freaking out and the zombie attack and him standing on the edge of the building. If you haven't seen it, it's a good movie. It's not the greatest zombie movie ever, but it's a really good movie. And then there's the downtime of the kids playing and the and then it ratchets back up to where he's flying, and then the downtime, and then it ratchets back up, and then the downtime, and as long as you keep that flow back and forth, you're doing fine. um to give basically a mental break, and you need to do that with your horror games, and even if you're running a fantasy game that's timelined, you want to do that. You'll have, like for example, one of the games that we looked at was, it's a Forged in the Dark, the army one. Band of Blades. Yeah, I look at him because he knows what I'm talking about. So in Band of Blades, it's very horror thematic, because you're fighting demons, right? Um, and you've got the tension that ratchets up, but then it comes back down when you're camping or when you're taking a rest, and then it comes back, and then it goes down, and then it comes back, because it's echoing very much the way an actual army would move, right? So if you look at war games, right, they're not just, oh, we're charging into battle and we're doing nonstop battle and shooting each other. No, they're going to have breaks. They're going to stop to eat. An army moves on its stomach. If they don't get chances to stop and eat, then they're going to get hungry, and nobody wants a hungry Marine. I'm just saying. No, this is not an okay thing. But then when you look at the other movies, the other horror movies, um, so the spoof horror movies, the first horror movie does okay, and then they do the spoof horror movie, and that does even better because they alternate the ratcheting of the stress with comedy. They did that with Resident Evil, right? You had her fighting the naked dogs, and then she drops a one liner that makes the audience giggle, right?
Or the dude with the golden pistols.
He got distracted by titties.
GTA motherfucker. No, you're absolutely correct, and that tension can be relieved by a lot of different things, right? In a horror game, it's often comedy, but if you're using a timed adventure, you don't want to do this with a campaign. God, you don't want to do this with a campaign. But if you're doing a timed adventure, once you're done with that timed adventure, switch it up. Do a site-based adventure. Do a uh, an intrigue adventure or an investigation or a dungeon delve or something, right? Um, Something different, and go away from that for an adventure or two. And then if you need to do it again, or if it makes sense in the campaign, then go do another one. Um, but you don't want to do that constant um, where the players feel that they're under the gun because they're going to ignore any side plots that you've got. They're going to ignore everything for those stressors, and all of a sudden your world flattens out, and that makes it really hard to stay immersed in that world.
Well, there is one campaign that does the timed stuff very, very well. Um, I'm trying to find the name of it. Um, I believe it's either it's from Pathfinder, Peso, and I'm thinking it's either Jade Regent or Kingmaker. You have it's not the entire thing isn't timed, but there's timed sections. Like in Kingmaker, you only have a certain amount of time to start your kingdom, to pick where your kingdom's going to be and start it. With Jade Regent, you have a certain amount of time where you've got to get your the person that you've rescued to the Jade Throne. Otherwise, he can't take the throne, or she can't take the throne.
Yeah, I think the one you're thinking of, or at least the one that I would think of, is that Jade Regent one. And that's kind of an interesting subplot that I don't know that I've ever seen it done well, but I've also not had a long enough term campaign that's interested in doing politics to where I could run something like that. Where you've got somebody that's an heir to the throne, and they've escaped um, because they were going to get killed. You have to get him back to the throne in such and such an amount of time. Otherwise, this despot's going to take over the throne. And he's looking for you and trying to stop you from getting there, and so you have to avoid his patrols or kill him or whatever, and protect her at the same time, or him. And it's just that's kind of a cool campaign, but it's a tough one to pull off. And kudos to the people that can do that.
Yeah. Well, let's be honest. You don't like running politics games, anyways.
I'm not good at it. Um, and it's not so much that I don't enjoy politics campaigns. It's that I'm an introvert. And I've said that before. I'll say it again. And so when I think of people and peopling, I hate it, and I try to avoid it at all costs. And so
Except
there's,
when you're gaming.
except when I'm gaming, but even then, um, it's different, right? So there's peopling in gaming and being with your gaming group and stuff like that, and then there's actual when you're out and socializing and having to relate to people that you may or may not have anything in common with. That's difficult for me, and it's difficult for me to think about um, how to do it in real life, which in turn makes it difficult for me to imagine how to think about it in character. And so when I run into a political game, as much as like when I'm reading, okay, I'll read sci-fi political books, I'll read fantasy political books, and I freaking love it. I eat that crap up. But actually playing the character in a game like that, it's like, okay, what would I say next? Shoot, I don't know. I don't know how to interact with these people in person. I don't know what I'm going to tell my character to do. It's give me a dice to roll or something like that, but that's no fun either. Or at least that's not as much fun for me as it used to be. And so I tend to end up sitting quieter in those games than I'd perhaps like to, or than is perhaps what the group would want. Just because I I personally don't know what to do that works better or that works in those situations.
Well, that was before you met me.
Well, now I just follow your lead, and that's fine. But that doesn't always work in a gaming situation.
I don't see why it wouldn't. I mean, look, okay, think about. So I'm going to get into this with you. So think about the books that you've read. What is the theme behind each one of the political books? Person A wants something person B has. The entire goal is to get that something without giving up more than what they want. It's like
Yeah.
negotiation. You have done that on more than one occasion when it comes to getting a raise at work, getting stuff from people that you work with, dealing with your customers, dealing with your suppliers, dealing with your engineers. So you do know how to do it. You just haven't figured out how to translate that into character speak. Oh, snap. Here comes logic. Choo choo. He
You'll
hates when
see
I
what I
do
have
that.
to put up with.
And just
You,
think,
you
you
getting this?
married me.
She does this crap all the time. It's horrible.
You married me.
Yeah, I did.
But I mean, if you take and think about what your character wants in a political intrigue game and how they're going and think about how they're going to get it. What do they want? Always, and it's like when we write, okay? I'm going to point this out too with the logic. Oh my god, here it comes. When we're writing, your character wants something. How do they get it? They ask for it. Now, the language might change based on the story that we're writing or the realm that we're writing in, but it doesn't change what you need to do. You need to figure out what your character wants, you need to figure out who has it, and you need to figure out what you need to trade to get it, or steal it, or kill for it. Because we've done all those.
That's fair.
Choo choo.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But yeah, so and the time limits one of the, and yes, it was Jade Regent. You were correct on that. Jade Regent is the one that has the timed sections. Um, Kingmaker does have a few, but not as many. So if you're looking for a good campaign in Pathfinder 1E, Jade Regent, I've always enjoyed Pathfinder stuff, but do be advised that Pathfinder also involves a lot of math.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I'm a little conflicted with. I've grown beyond the need for math in my role playing because math, but my goodness, some of those adventure paths were freaking amazing.
I've grown beyond the need for math in my games, but I'm an engineer.
Well, yeah, I mean, I spend all day doing math. I don't want to come home and play games with math.
1 + 1 is 2.
I have no idea what you just said. So that kind of covers what I planned on talking about today. Um, you have any other comments, huh?
Eh, I can comment about the fact that we're finally back in Virginia. I am so happy to be done with the whole going to Michigan, going back to Virginia, going to Michigan. I tired.
I don't blame you. She was a saint, guys. She was a trooper. Um, yeah, she was here almost every weekend for 3 straight months, and it was a 9-hour drive one way. Um, hauling stuff down to our storage unit here, getting stuff ready for the move. It was just she's amazing. But
We own too much stuff.
we do own too much stuff. Um, we probably own too much role playing stuff, but who cares? Um, yeah, but we're almost back to a steady kind of schedule. We streamed V Rising on Friday. We've got this lounge here tonight. And then next Sunday it's Invisible Sunday, and so we're back in the actuality, and I'm looking forward to getting my group together again.
I
Um,
have missed them.
I have too. I love my cast. I love them, and I love the stories that we tell. And then doing this every Sunday, sitting down and um, talking to all of you when you stop by. Like right now, Kelton, buddy, it's good to see you. Um,
And yes, he is. He just likes to think he's not.
I always feel like I'm not, and maybe I don't know,
You're
maybe it's
wrong.
bad, but that's just how it feels.
That's because you're wrong. WRONG. Wrong.
Look,
Yes. And I can give examples of how good at the whole political and discussion stuff Josh is from the numerous Shadowrun games I have ran from him, where his character often talked their asses out of trouble. So I have facts, logic, and proof. Oh, snap.
you enjoy that way too much.
Yes, Fesner, Kelton, he is good at it. He is still mostly an introvert, but he is good at getting into the mental headspace of a character. He just questions himself afterwards, like most of us do. I mean, I'm going to be honest. After I run a game, I'm like, oh my God, did I do okay? Was that okay? Did I do all right? And that's normal because imposter syndrome, that's a thing. Next.
So clowns.
Okay, now that just gave me an idea for a FAFO run like you wouldn't believe.
So for those of you that have no idea what she's talking about, a FAFO run, FAFO, is fuck around and find out. Um, at some point, I don't know that it's going to happen soon, but at some point, we will be starting to broadcast one shots or a few shots, I guess, um, of
Chaos.
FAFO runs. And it's very much going to be adventures that are off the cuff. They may be printed, they may be not. We're going to derail the hell out of them, and they'll be um, the players will fuck around and find out what happens. We did a private one. What was it, last week or something like that?
Yeah, it was last Sunday.
And it was a
Chaos.
published adventure, and we amped up the power level of the PCs. I played a 10th level wizard. I can't remember the last time I played anything over about, you know, 5th or 6th level. And so he had some juice behind him, and I got to toss around some spells, and it was kind of cool. It was one of those, give him a couple magical items. I don't even care what the magic items are. Make him OP and run. And so my dude had a staff of the Archmage, and he had a robe of the Archmage, and just I tossed stuff around and saw what happened, and it was a lot of fun. And we'll probably start doing that just as kind of stress relief, but that'll probably be next year, beginning
No,
of next year, maybe
it's gonna
later
be
this
this
year.
year.
Later this year, okay.
Yeah. I'm looking at starting it probably mid to late July, to get it launched before I go back to school. Because I'm gonna be honest, after school, I'm gonna need fuck around time. I honestly am. Those of you that have been following us, I have joined classes. I am going to become a software engineer. The classes that I've taken are development classes, to help me find a job, help me get my skills up to par, and then find a job in the field. But yeah, it's going to be a lot of mental brain work. So I'm going to want FAFO time.
And since I'll use any excuse I can to play with my wife, and I happen to like her as a GM, this works.
Yeah, Kelton was in there.
Jeff,
Alex from uh, one of my home Midgard game was there. Jeffrey Boring was there, and we were just having a good old time cutting it up and fucking around. And I was just, here's what you see. What do you want to do? And they took it and ran. It started as a published adventure, and then it went floosh, sploosh.
and it was amazing. It was a spectacular explosion. And so do we continue that one, or do we do something else? I don't know what we're gonna do, but it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be zany. It's gonna be crazy, and we're gonna just have a blast doing it. And so we'll be looking for players. So if you're seeing this and that sounds like something that would be exciting for you, or fun, just to hang out with a bunch of role playing geeks and screw around with in
Yeah, no,
all kinds of different worlds. Heck yeah.
Kelton, you have obligations first. You need to get your ass moved. Yeah, our friend Kelton is moving. So yay! Good job for finally getting rid of that place that you were tired of running. And um but yeah, and then you have your other obligations that you promised that I've made the character for, Mr. Kelton. You I want to play my character. So he's gonna be running a planescape planescape game, and I made a lawful neutral Dampire Paladin Oath of Conquest. And I think it's going to be hilariously fun because I let the dice decide all the things for her background, her bonds, and her ambitions and her drives. And yes, yeah, I couldn't remember if it was Planescape or Planebreaker because we were looking at the Planebreaker stuff earlier, and I'm super excited to play with that.
Yes, we have a lot of crap, and we've got more coming. And so,
And I
speaking
get
of,
dice.
yes, you get dice. So, speaking of which, another thing that we've gotten back to um, doing, in addition to somewhat regular streaming now, is we've started getting back on our reviews. And so, the last few weeks, we've got a couple of reviews up. Kelton, it's been good to see you. We're glad you joined us. Feel free to come back. We love seeing you.
You know where we're at.
You know where we're at. We reviewed crap.
You reviewed
Break
Origin.
Break the Horizon from Numenera, and I reviewed the Origin, which is a new Monte Cook game cipher system setting. It's a low level superhero, gritty, almost World of Darkness Hunter-esque kind of setting that was pretty freaking cool. Definitely worth you taking a look at. We've got some more coming. I'm taking a look at another game now called Highcaster, and that'll probably be my next review. And then, shoot, we've got
I'm gonna get around to doing Coyote and Crow. We
Coyote
did
and
Sunshine
Crow,
that one.
First Responders.
First responders. Um, I'm not able to get those out as fast because, as I've said, I'm still unpacking. We moved a 5 bedroom, 2.5 bath house with a basement and a shed full of stuff into a 2 bedroom apartment. So half of our 90% of our stuff is in storage, and I'm having to go get boxes and bring them and unpack what I absolutely have to have, repack the box, and then take it back to storage.
Very much so. It's a whole process of suck, but we're getting through it. We'll get there, and things are starting to get back to normal, which feels really freaking good too. Um, as I joke about being introverted, and I am, but even something like this where we're online, we're streaming, and yeah, I don't have a whole lot of expectation that a ton of people are going to watch this, but our friend Kelton jumps on and we chat with him, and we chat with Fook when he comes on, and a whole bunch of other people, and that's not really introverted. That's stepping out of the box a little bit for me, and that's okay. I get to hang out with people that like what we like. I get to hang out with my wife. We get to talk about gaming. We get to play games, and make a, I don't know if you call it a job, but there are people that actually pay us to do this a little bit, and that's kind of weird in a really cool kind of way. Speaking of which, we've got a Patreon. that has regular content that goes up for our patrons and only for them. That's the only place you can get this. A lot of it's cartography because I enjoy cartography, but Joanne's done some stuff for adventure ideas and things like that, and she's even done a map on there. Things that we hope are maybe useful for your games or that give you sparks of ideas that you can kind of riff off of. Um, we've got content out on Drive Through RPG that people still buy, and we've got more that we're developing. And as things go back to normal, we've got we'll have time to go back to developing that, particularly the Citadel system, which is something I'm looking forward to getting out into the wild and seeing what people think. Um, Other than that, you can chase us around the internet. We show up all kinds of different places. It's crazy. We even have TikToks. I swore I would never, ever, ever show up on TikTok because I didn't get it. And you know what happened? I still don't get it, but I have a TikTok.
Yeah, but I'm the only one actually doing TikTok videos.
Yes, I go on TikTok and I like your videos, and that's my contribution to TikTok. We're on Twitter, we're on Twitch, we're on YouTube. This video itself will be up on YouTube here in the next day or so. Um, Find us on Facebook, on MeWe. We've got a Discord, we've got Patreon. There's all kinds of places you can find us. We have merchandise, for crying out loud. There's stuff out there with Angel Citadel logo on it, and it's really freaking cool.
And people have bought it.
And there are people that have bought it. It's weird, but this brand that we're starting to build, this idea of being able to help gamers enjoy gaming better and um, uh, bring things to you that will help your games, and maybe give you different things to play and things like that. We love that. We love the idea of helping because gaming gave us each other. Gaming gave us everything that matters to me. And if I can give back because of that, I'm going to do it. So, thank you for being there for us. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for listening. And from our Citadel to yours, happy gaming.
Happy gaming.